As we are permanently lodged in the Divine Beloved, we are all one. Meher Baba. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. Thanks to Beloved Baba and Jai Baba to all of you. We are once again meeting in His love, in Baba's love, in His remembrance, reading God Speaks. We were doing, or rather we are doing, the seventh part 7. The title is The Sevenfold Veil, and we were on page 68, and there is a supplement number 14 which we are reading. It's called The Divine Theme, and we are on page number 221, paragraph number 2.
Before the world of forms and duality came into existence, there was nothing but God, that is, an indivisible and boundless ocean of power, knowledge, and bliss. But this ocean was unconscious of itself. Picture to yourself this ocean as absolutely still and calm, unconscious of its power, knowledge, and bliss, and unconscious that it is the ocean. The billions of drops which are in the ocean do not have any consciousness. They do not know that they are drops, nor that they are in the ocean, nor that they are a part of the ocean. This represents the original state of reality.
The original state of reality, Baba explains as state 1, where God is, but consciousness is not. That state is called the Paratpar Parbrahma state, or the beyond state of God, or Varaul Vara state. God is, but He is not conscious of anything. The infinite knowledge, power and bliss is there, but it is not conscious of anything. And it is the very same state, consciously, in terms of consciousness, that we all go through when we experience the sound sleep state. In sound sleep state, not the awake state, which is now the false awake state, or not the dream state when I go to sleep, but sound sleep state, no dreams, where I am, but the consciousness that I am is not there. That is the exact same state of God in this particular state which we just read about.
This original state of reality comes to be disturbed by an urge to know itself. This urge was always latent in the ocean, and when it begins to express itself, it endows the drops with individuality. When this urge makes the still water move, there immediately spring up numerous bubbles or forms around the drops, and it is these bubbles which give individuality to the drops. The bubbles do not and cannot actually divide the indivisible ocean. They cannot separate the drop from the ocean. They merely give to these drops a feeling of separateness or limited individuality.
So how did this limited individuality come about? How is it that the ocean, which is unbounded, infinite, eternal, and also indivisible, got itself divided into several drops or several atmas? The answer is that there is no such division as such. It is only an apparent, it's a feeling of apparent separateness. There's no real separateness. So here the urge, Baba somewhere uses the word the whim or the lahar. It was already latent, supta, in the ocean, and all of a sudden it just emerged, and when it emerged, there was a movement, and when the movement happened, there were what is called bubbles or forms formed, which apparently, not really, apparently, dikhawa, which apparently separated the drop and the ocean, or drop from the ocean.
Now, let us study the life of one drop soul through its different stages. Owing to the arising of the bubble, the drop soul, which was completely unconscious, is invested with individuality or a feeling of separateness as well as with very slight consciousness. This consciousness, which has sprung up in the drop soul, is not of itself nor of the ocean, but it is of the bubble or the form which in itself is nothing. This imperfect bubble at this stage is represented by the form of a stone. After some time, this bubble of form bursts, and there springs up in its place another bubble of form. Now, when a bubble bursts, two things happen. One, there is an increase in consciousness, and two, there is a twist or consolidation of impressions or sanskaras accumulated during the life of the previous bubble.
All right. So starting, there was an ocean, very calm, very peaceful, unconscious that it is the ocean, unconscious that it is having the latent urge within itself, unconscious that it has got infinite knowledge, power and bliss. When the urge or the whim sprung up, there was a shaking. With the shaking, there was these bubbles, and that gave very minuscule, Baba uses the word, most finite consciousness was gained by that drop soul. Not that I am the ocean, not that I am the drop, but that I am the form. In other words, from the very beginning of creation, this focusing of the consciousness of the soul on the form rather than on itself, it began billions of years, and that is what it is still continuing. Right now we are focusing on the body and thinking, I am this, I am this, I am this, but this is just a form, right? Which encases the soul. So here Baba says, now how beautifully and logically Baba goes, now okay, now shaking happened and the bubble is formed. Now, let us study the life of one drop soul through its different stages. Now, the entire God Speaks is nothing but a biography of one individualized soul from the creation to realization. Biography. From creation to evolution. Evolution means different forms are changing from gas to stone to metal to vegetation to worms, reptiles, whatever you call it, worms, to fish, bird, animal, human form. This entire process is called evolution. Once the human form is reached or achieved, there is no further evolution of consciousness. Evolution is now complete with all the three bodies, which means gross, subtle and mental. Subtle and mental bodies were also simultaneously being evolved as the evolution takes place, but it was being, nobody was aware of that. Even in human form, we are not aware of the subtle body and the mental body. But all the three bodies were complete in the first human form. After all these samskaras were wound, there was no further evolvement or evolution of consciousness. Then there is reincarnation. Reincarnation is meant to loosen all the knots. We'll come to the knots and the twist later on. To loosen all the knots. And once they are fairly loose, when the grossness has become very, very feeble, very, very weak, very thin, very fine, very loose, then those gross samskaras transform themselves into subtle sanskaras. And now when the subtle sanskaras are predominant, obviously you enter the spiritual path, which is known as the involutionary journey. You go through the first three major subtle planes, first, second and third. Then there is fourth, which is the threshold between the subtle and the mental. Then you jump the threshold, go into the mental, the fifth and the sixth in the mental, and then realization. So first creation, evolution, reincarnation, involution, realization. This story is of one drop soul from unconscious divinity to conscious divinity. Divinity is given platform. There is never that we are not divine. We are all divine. We are intrinsically divine, but there is no consciousness that I am divine, that I am God. Aham Brahmasmi, Analhak, Soham, I am God state, God realization, self-realization. That was not there. So this whole Jamela, Matagut, is just to gain that consciousness that I am God. So Baba says, now let us study the life of one drop soul through its different stages. Owing to the arising of the bubble, the drop soul, which was completely unconscious, is invested with individuality. This is where individuality comes. I am separate, you drop soul is different, that drop soul is different. So individuality. I have brought the book in case you want to refer. Individuality. For a feeling of separateness. That is where the ego gets born. What ego? The false, separative, finite ego mind gets created, gets born. As well as with very slight consciousness. Very slight. Baba uses the word earlier in the earlier chapters, most finite consciousness. This consciousness, which has sprung up in the drop soul, is not of itself, not of the ocean, not of itself. I am a drop soul in the ocean, I am a part of that ocean. No, not of the ocean, not of itself, but it is of the bubble or the form. So the consciousness is of the form, which in itself is nothing. It is just a bubble. It's an illusion. This imperfect bubble at this stage is represented by the form of a stone. So Baba is avoiding us to mathakut karne ke liye about the gases. There are some 276 forms of gases. He says you will just skip that. Now let us start from the stone. After some time, this bubble or form bursts, and there springs up in its place another bubble or form. So from stone, at places Baba is using stone, metal, minerals as one. Stones and metals as one. At certain places, he uses stone as separate and metal as separate. So okay, bubble, then now the one form is burst. What will happen? It will take another form. Now when a bubble bursts, two things happen. Now this is a very beautiful contraption. One, there is an increase in consciousness. With every bursting of the bubble, there is an increase in consciousness. With every increase in consciousness, there is a need for another form which is more higher or more greater or more complex from the form which it has discarded or dropped. So that is the mechanics that it keeps on improving. Two things happen. There is an increase in consciousness, and two, there is a twist or consolidation of impressions or sanskaras accumulated during the life of the previous bubble. There is a knot, there is a twist. I can't imagine. I think it's so brilliant. All the sanskaras that I have, let us say, accumulated in a certain form, when the form is dropped and I am taking another form, Baba comes and, like how, supposing I have too much of chutta paisa, chiller in my pocket, what do? I take a handkerchief and make a knot so that, they are all consolidated, they remain at one place rather than being scattered here and there. So the sanskaras, so as they don't scatter here and there, they are consolidated, they are formed into a knot. And there is a twist in consciousness, and it takes another form and another and another. The consciousness?
The consciousness of the drop soul has now slightly increased, but the drop soul is still conscious only of this new bubble or form and not of itself nor of the ocean. This new bubble is represented by the form of the metal.
Of the metal. Metal, huh? So the stone form is over, now it has now automatically it has become metal. That way. Go ahead.
This new bubble or form also bursts in due course of time, and simultaneously there is a further increase in consciousness and a fresh twist or consolidation of sanskaras, which gives rise to the emergence of another type of bubble or form.
So every time the bubble is burst and a new form is taken place, that means from stone to metal, from metal to vegetables, from vegetables to earth, worms and all that,
Reptiles.
then fish, bird, yeah. Every time the form changes, there is a twist and there is a knot.
This process continues right through the course of evolution, which covers the stages of stones, metals, vegetables, worms, fishes, birds, and animals. Every time that the previous bubble of form bursts, it gains more consciousness and adds one twist to the already accumulated sanskaras until it reaches the human bubble of form, in which the ever increasing consciousness becomes full and complete. The process of the winding up of sanskaras consists of these regular twists, and it is these twists which keep the consciousness gained by the drop soul directed and fixed towards the bubble or the form instead of towards its real self, even when the consciousness is fully developed in the human form.
So even though the conscious, see, the lahar or the whim or the urge which we talked about just now was for what? The will or the urge to be conscious. That was the starting point. Now in the first human form, the consciousness is whole and complete. So I should have realized God and said, oh, I am God in the very first human form. But no, Baba did not do that. Otherwise, as I say, he would have become unemployed. That means the moment the first birth means finished. No. So he is very brilliantly what he has done. At every time the bubble changes, he is making a twist and a knot, so that the consciousness, instead of focusing, I am God, focuses on the form. Because of the accumulation of the samskaras, which are retained in a knotted form. Am I making sense? Right.
On gaining the human form, the second process begins. This process is that of reincarnation. At this point, the process of the winding up of sanskaras comes to an end.
Very important. After the first human form, there is no further winding of the sanskaras. Already it is wound. There is no further winding. Now in the process of reincarnation, in the human form, there is only spending of the samskaras, what we call as expending or experiencing the samskaras, and again gathering fresh samskaras. There is no winding. The process of winding stops at the first human form. And the process of unwinding starts when you start your involutionary journey, the first plane onward. So there is a winding through the process of evolution. There is a shaking. I call it thapar. Thapar, 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 all kinds of experiences in reincarnation. High, low, good, bad, rich, poor, healthy, sick, easterner, westerner, handsome, ugly, etc., etc. All this will happen in the reincarnation, where the gross conscious samskara, which are very strong, stool, crude, hard to remove, they get shakings. They get shaken up. And then when they are fully shaken up, when they have become absolutely, it cannot give you any further experience of gross, because the grossness is over. It transforms itself into subtle, and then you enter the spiritual plane, the first plane of consciousness, which is also known as the path to realization or the involutionary journey. And then that is where the unwinding of the samskaras start. Go ahead.
The drop soul takes numerous human forms one by one, and these forms are exactly 84 lakhs in number. These human forms are sometimes those of man, and sometimes those of woman, and they change nationalities, appearance, color, and creed.
It is very important. Last time also I emphasized. Today I may be an Indian and I may be opposing some other, country. Or today I may be born in a certain religion and I may be opposing certain other religions and creeds. But who knows? In my last birth I would have been that. So that is why Baba is so particular about not evaluating anybody, not judging anybody, not condemning anybody, and not to get into that rigmarole of I am good, you are bad. This is I am superior, you are inferior. Because every soul has to go through all these things in order to experience all the experiences.
The drop soul, through human incarnations, experience itself sometimes as a beggar and sometimes as a king, and thus gathers experiences of the opposites of happiness or misery according to its good or bad sanskaras. In reincarnation, that is, in its successive and several human forms, the drop soul retains its full consciousness but continues to have alternating experiences of opposite sanskaras till the process of realization begins.
Process of realization means till the involutionary journey begins. So in the reincarnating stage, we retain our full consciousness. Always remember, full consciousness once gained is never lost, except the exception of the fourth plane, which we did yesterday. Full consciousness once gained, there is no retrogressive consciousness, as it is said in some other religions, where Baba says it's an impossibility. Once having born a man, supposing you did some horrible deeds, you will be born in a horrible condition where you have to pay for your deeds, but you won't be born as a dog. You may be leading a dog's life, so to speak. People will kick you around, people will insult you, people will beat you up, but you will not be going into a form of a dog or a monkey or a donkey or whatever it is. That Baba says is not, it's always progressing. And now you are full consciousness is gained in the human form. You do not go back to the pre-human species.
And during this process of realization, the sanskaras get unwound.
So the unwinding of the samskaras start at the point when you enter the inner spiritual path, what Baba calls the path to realization.
In reincarnations, there is a spending up of sanskaras, but this spending up is quite different from the unwinding of sanskaras, which takes place during the process of realization.
That means during involution.
The spending up of sanskaras itself creates new sanskaras which bind the soul, but the unwinding of sanskaras does not itself create fresh sanskaras, and it is intended to undo the very strong grip of sanskaras in which the drop soul is caught.
So in other words, spending of the samskaras which we do in reincarnation process is totally different from unwinding of samskaras which happens when you enter the spiritual path.
Up to the human form, the winding up of sanskaras becomes stronger and stronger during the process of evolution.
When we come to the chart, you will see how the winding of samskaras become more and more strong.
In the human forms of reincarnation, the winding continues to operate as a limiting factor, but with every change of the human bubble or form, the tight twists gained during the process of winding get loosened through 84 lakhs of shakings before they are ready to unwind in the process of realization.
So the winding of the samskaras becomes stronger and stronger during the evolutionary process. The winding does not continue. The winding continues to remain as a limiting factor for the consciousness of the soul of a human being to function. In other words, in the initial stages of the person's birth as a human form, he is more like an animal, he is more crude. So in every species, Baba says that from the crude, from the most crude to the most sublime, and that is how the progress always takes place. Now there is an asterisk here about 84 lakhs of shakings.
Many readers do not discern that Meher Baba customarily described the life cycle as evolution, reincarnation, involution, and the process of realization. Fearing the statement in the text above might seem contradictory to that in paragraph 3, page 176. We asked Eraj B. Jasawala for clarification. He replied, once one is on the planes of consciousness, the reincarnation process may be said to have come to its fag end. On the path leading to beloved God, the impatience to see Him and to be one with Him is intense. Such reincarnations as are necessary due to impressions burdening the consciousness seem almost nil when compared to 84 lakhs of shakings. Editor.
This is editor has said. Now let us just read what is this page number
176.
176, paragraph 3.
The soul has to pass.
176, no?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
The soul has to pass through 8,400,000 in bracket 84 lakhs human forms after it has once commenced to reincarnate in the human form until it has attained God realization. The pre-human forms through which it has to pass the pre-human forms through which it has to pass before it can reincarnate in the human form are innumerable.
So the confusion with some of the readers must have been that in totality, starting from evolution till till realization, there are 84 lakhs of, the shakings or reincarnation. So the editor asked Eraj Jasawala, whom we all know, and he responded that these 84 lakhs only belong to the human form in the process of reincarnation, and because once he enters the plane, first plane, and the longing is so great that soul also will come back to as a human form a couple of times, but they are so negligible, and therefore it is construed, it is thought that these 84 lakhs only belong to the human form from the start of the first human being till the involutionary process starts. Am I clear? Okay.
Completes.
So it's clear, huh?
Completes, not starts.
No,
Involution completes.
starts. Not, that is why he says.
Because
starts.
it is so intense,
Ek
it is
minute.
hardly taking any
No,
time.
no. See what he says is, on the path leading to beloved
Seem
God,
almost nil.
the impatience to see Him and so, such reincarnations as are necessary due to impressions burdening the consciousness seem almost nil. That means very little of in the path. Very little. Yeah.
Human DNA has permutation combination of 83 lakhs 88,000 something.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Human what?
DNA.
DNA.
Oh, I did not know that.
So,
Huh?
as you are saying that we have to experience each and everything, each and every high and low, it is embedded in human DNA.
In the human.
I was discussing with Ward Parks, and he told me that it is embedded in human DNA. So we have to experience each and everything, like being a human being, being a lady, being a girl, being a boy, and every ups and downs.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So
correct.
it's there in our DNA.
Thank you.
So
Thank
he explained
you.
me. That.
Thank you. All right. Let's go ahead.
Yeah, now begins the third process of realization, which is a process of ascent.
Now in the chart you will see that evolution, although it looks like an ascent, is actually a descent. Are you putting the chart on now? No need. You already put. Okay. It's actually a descent. And now, in the reincarnation process, I'm sorry, in the involutionary process, it is an ascent. That means you come down from stone, metals, vegetables, fish, reptiles, we call it worms, fish, bird, animal, human beings. Then you take a U-turn, sort of, and then you ascend. In other words, there is a going up, first plane, second plane, third plane, fourth plane, etc. Okay? Now begins.
Now begins the third process of realization, which is the process of ascent. Here, the drop soul undergoes the gradual unwinding of the sanskaras.
If you see, there is a winding like this. And then once the human form is there, the winding becomes a limiting factor. But in the process of ascent or in the process of going through the planes, there is an unwinding. You can see it on the arc also, first plane, second plane, third plane, unwinding, ulta winding, right?
During this process of unwinding, the sanskaras become fainter and fainter, and at the same time, the consciousness of the drop soul gets directed more and more towards itself, and thus the drop soul passes through the subtle and mental planes till all the sanskaras disappear completely, enabling it to become conscious of itself as the ocean.
So, in other words, elsewhere Baba has explained the flashlight of consciousness, which was focusing outside, without, gradually turns within, and you get to know your own self. And when it is completely turned inwards, then you know that I always was, am, and will ever remain God.
In the infinite ocean of the oversoul, you are the drop or the soul. You are the soul in the ordinary state, and you use your consciousness in seeing and experiencing the bubble or the form. Through the gross layer of the bubble, you experience that part of the huge gross bubble which is the earth. You are eternally lodged and indivisibly one with the oversoul, but you do not experience it. In the advanced stage, up through the third plane, you use your consciousness in seeing and experiencing the huge subtle bubble called the subtle world through the subtle bubble of form called the subtle body, but you do not see and experience the oversoul which you are in, since your consciousness is not now directed towards the oversoul.
In other words, we had done earlier that the gross bubble is nothing but the shadow of the Paramatma, and our gross form is nothing but the shadow of the Atma. With one shadow, which is the form, we are accessing, analyzing, and living in another shadow, which is the bubble of God, which we call earth. So it's all an illusion. In that sense, it is all an illusion. That's what Baba is trying to say. I'll read the last this thing. In the infinite ocean of the oversoul, you are the drop or the soul. Drop means a soul. Oversoul means Paramatma. Paramatma, Atma, drop soul, and ocean. You are the soul in the ordinary sense, and
ordinary state.
You are the soul in the ordinary state, and you use your consciousness in seeing and experiencing the bubble or the form. What am I seeing and experiencing? The bubble or the form. I am experiencing everything that is happening in the world. It is nothing but a bubble or a form of the Paramatma. Through the gross layer of the bubble, you experience that part of the huge gross bubble, which is the earth. Now, here when I was reading this, a little confusion arose in my mind that how can earth only be the gross? Because Baba talks about so many earths, so many galaxies, so many suns. So that answer I got in a few pages later on which is 229. So there's a, in other words, there is a gross sphere consisting of innumerable galaxies, stars, planets, suns, moons, etc. That is the gross sphere. In that gross sphere, there is one gross bubble which is called the earth. You can imagine. So what could be the size of the sphere? Now this is expanding. Baba says ad infinitum. If you understand the meaning, it keeps on expanding. And where is it expanding? It is expanding in space. And what is space? Space is the shadow of the Paramatma. And because Paramatma or the Oversoul or the ocean is infinite, the shadow of the Paramatma or the Oversoul or the ocean is also infinite. So it keeps on expanding. And this is only gross. Remember, this entire gross sphere is dependent and contained in the subtle. Viewed from the lens of the subtle, the gross sphere is just a dot. Imagine. So the subtle is independent of the gross, but the gross is dependent upon the subtle. Now, above subtle is the mental. Viewed from the lens of the mental, the gross and the subtle both combined is just a mere speck of dust, drop. The mental is independent of the subtle and the gross. The subtle is dependent upon the mental. That means energy comes from the mind. That's how it works. Now there is God, the Paramatma, the Oversoul, the infinite unbounded ocean. Mental is dependent upon God. But God is independent of the mental, subtle and gross. Am I making sense? So we can imagine the hugeness. It's unimaginable. You cannot even imagine. So here what Baba is trying to say is that one false bubble, which is my body, is experiencing, analyzing, judging, evaluating, getting knowledge of ignorance, of course, of a different bubble, which is the bubble called earth. So here Baba says that in seeing, experiencing the bubble or the form, through the gross layer of the bubble, that means through my gross senses of 5 senses, you experience that part of the huge gross bubble which is the earth. You are eternally lodged and indivisibly one with the Oversoul, which is Paramatma, but you do not experience it. In the advanced stage, up through the third plane, you use your consciousness in seeing and experiencing the huge subtle bubble. Because now all my grossness is over. I have gone into the subtle world. So I am using my subtle bubble, that means the subtle body, to experience the subtle world. And as I progress further, I go into the mental, and I use my mental body to access and to analyze and to study and to know everything about the mental world. Through the subtle body or the subtle... Yes, brother.
When you talked about the gross sphere, subtle sphere, and mental sphere, and then there is the real sphere, but in between is also something called the composite.
We are not
We have
coming
not
to
come
that.
there.
Don't come to that. I know you have read it. Because that will confuse people. We will be coming to composite, I know that. 7 layers, the lower, the medium and the high, I know that. But it won't
Not
make
now.
any sense to anybody else. That's why I always, in the very first session, I said, let us speak on what we've already done. Because otherwise, if I start explaining the composite, there is a gross, subtle, mental, fourth which is composite, and then fifth, real. Am I right?
But what you are trying to mention here is that all these 3 spheres are part of the illusion.
Yes, correct.
And that is the main point.
Correct. It's all an illusion except the 5th sphere. When we come to composite, we'll do that. That is the real sphere. Yeah. Because many people have not read. So if I speak about the composite sphere, it will confuse them still more. So that's why. Huh? Okay.
You were reading.
Yeah, okay. The subtle body. Where is it? But now you do not see and experience, still you do not see and experience the oversoul which you are in, since your consciousness is not now directed towards the oversoul. So in other words, our consciousness is still tied up with those knots, that we are not able to experience the oversoul. Go ahead.
In the advanced stage, from the fourth through the sixth plane, you use your consciousness in seeing and experiencing the huge mental bubble, which is called the mental world, through the mental bubble of form, which is called the mental body. But even now, you do not experience the oversoul. But in the God realized state, you continually use your consciousness for seeing and experiencing the oversoul, and then all the forms are known as being nothing but bubbles.
So only at the end of the story, when we experience the I am God state, we would be able to experientially realize that I alone am, and everything that I have gone through, the so-called gross, subtle, mental, whatever you call it, including the composite sphere, they were all bubbles. They were all illusory. They are shadows. They have no meaning whatsoever. Right.
So now, picture yourself as the soul drop, lodged in the oversoul, behind 5 layers after the gross body. You,
Okay,
the soul drop, are now looking at the gross body and through it at the gross world. When you look at the second layer and through it the first layer will appear to you as nothing but a layer only, and thus looking behind each layer you will find all these layers as only your shadow covers. And finally, when you, that is the soul drop, look at and get merged in the oversoul, you realize that only you were real, and all that you were seeing and experiencing till now was your own shadow and nothing else.
In other words, once you graduate from the gross to the subtle, you no longer see the gross world, means experience the gross world. You live in the gross world, but your consciousness is now focused on the subtle. It was just there's no meaning, it's just a layer. When you go from the subtle to the mental, you feel the same for the gross as well as the subtle. When you go from the mental to reality, which is God realization, you realize that all these were just shadows and layers. Now here, there is I also had got confused in this one. See, it says, so now picture yourself as the soul drop, which means the drop soul, lodged in the oversoul behind 5 layers after the gross body. After the gross body, it says. And elsewhere, when I went to this, here it says on page number 227, thus, at the human stage, the soul with its consciousness has 3 bodies, which means gross, subtle, and mental, but 6 layers. 6 layers, and here it says, including the gross layer, because I was struggling with after the gross layer, where are the 6 layers? So now we get the answer. So the gross layer is also included in those 6 layers, which I'll read out to you just now, known as the gross body. So what are the layers? The first is the gross layer, where there is a full expression of desires. Whatever I want to do, I can express my desires. Then there is a subtle layer where there is partial expression of desires. Only partially I can express. I cannot put it into action. Then there is mental layer. In mental there is intellect, which is now completely developed in the first human form. And there is what is known as felt desires of the mental world. That means you feel like doing something. So this is the third layer. Then there is fourth layer, which is called ego. In that again there are 2 items. One is the seat of individuality. So when we talk about false ego, anytime I feel that I am separated from the other, from the rest, I am other than this, in any way, even though ego, many people feel ego means pride. Oh, I know so much, I am strong, I am intelligent, I am handsome, I am rich. No, even if I say, I am so meek, I am so giving in all the time, I am so poor, I am so well-mannered, whatever. That also is a kind of ego. Ego means that which separates you from the other. False ego I am talking about. So, the fourth layer is the ego, the seat of individuality, and the sanskaras, which are unexpressed desires. Unexpressed desires form in this particular aspect of ego. Then they are partially mentally expressed in the mental world. Then they are partially, still more or rather less partially expressed in the subtle world and fully expressed in the gross world. So we have done gross, subtle, mental, ego, and then there is consciousness, which is now complete, full in the human form, and then there is soul. So here Baba says 6 layers behind the soul is consciousness, ego, mind, subtle world and gross world. 5 layers behind that. So this is what I just took it out. It's not here, but I just thought because Baba mentions here that you have 5 layers behind the soul. So these are the layers. Go ahead. Done? Okay. Now we come to the real chart. Explanation of chart 9 and 10.
Chart 9.
Okay, chart 9. Chart 9 is there with you. We have a loose copy also if somebody wants to. Okay. Go ahead.
The big semicircle in chart 9 represents the oversoul.
You can see that circle, semicircle, where in block letters it is written oversoul, which is Paramatma, who is unbounded, who is infinite, eternal.
Which contains everything in the universe.
Everything meaning everything. Everything meaning everything. Which also includes the nothing. We'll come to that. Yeah, okay.
The life of a single individual soul is depicted in the 3 main stages of evolution, reincarnation, and the process of realization.
See, if you go from left to right, up to the human form, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? You can read that. Up to the human form, this is evolution. The
Like
human
this, like
form,
this, like this.
you can see the human form, high, low, good, bad, easterner, westerner, woman, man, etc. That is reincarnation. And then the arc goes like this, tapers down on the right side. That is the involution or the unwinding of sanskaras. You can see those sanskaras also winding in one direction and unwinding in the other direction. Go ahead.
Before attaining the human form, it goes through 7 stages of each of the following kinds of existence, namely stone, metal, vegetable, worm, fish, bird, and animal.
There is a small circle in which there is written S. S for soul. It remains constant throughout. There is no change in the size of the soul throughout the entire process. Go ahead.
At the 7th stage, that is, just before entering a new kind of existence, you will note a pictorial representation of a twist or a knot which stands for a consolidation of previously acquired sanskaras.
So in the very first left-hand side, you will find stone souls. You can see stone souls. And there are 7 over there. And then at the end of the 7, you will find that there is a twist. That is the knot, twist. And that represents the consolidation of the samskaras of the stone form. Now the stone form is dropped and it is taking on another form, which is here depicted by metal souls. And again the metal souls have 7 windings, and then you will have a knot. So go ahead. The outer red.
Outer red circle round the individual soul S represents the sanskaras accumulated during the process of evolution, and the blue appendage to S represents the consciousness which comes to be developed simultaneously.
Now you can see that the red circle is gradually increasing. Why? Because red is representing sanskaras. That means the sanskaras are being wound, the sanskaras are becoming bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Complex.
And with the corresponding sanskaras becoming bigger and bigger, the consciousness also, which is depicted by that blue, is also becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. So with the development and the evolution of consciousness, there is an evolution of, the sanskaras get more and more. Okay, I'll put it this way. Because of the accumulation of more and more samskaras, depicted by the red circle, which is gradually increasing, the blue is also gradually increasing, which is depicting consciousness. That means with the increase of samskaras, there is a gradual increase in consciousness. And because of the increase in consciousness, that particular soul requires now more and more higher or complex forms in order to experience the samskaras which it has gathered in the earlier form. Am I making sense? Very clear. Okay. So you can see that the red is increasing and the blue is increasing up till the human form. You can see. And then from human form to the right hand side, the red, which is the samskaras, are gradually reducing. There is an unwinding of samskaras, gradually reducing. The consciousness, the blue, remains the same. There is no lowering of consciousness till that soul A reaches soul Z, which is where only consciousness remains and there is no samskaras. There is no red. You can see that. Okay, go ahead, read Samya.
Which becomes Z soul after going through evolution, reincarnation, and the process of realization. It is only in the God state that consciousness is free from sanskaras.
So up till now, whatever we have read, we are able to understand through the chart.
In the chart.
Okay, go ahead.
The gross, subtle, and mental worlds, that is Annabhumi, Pranabhumi, and Manobhumi, are each represented by a big circle on the right hand side.
So you can see on the right hand side there are three circles. Anna Bhumi, which is gross world, Prana Bhumi, which is subtle world, and Mano Bhumi, which is the mental world. Now all these stone, metal, vegetable, etc., you can see winding going up and touching only the periphery circle line of the gross sphere. You can see that all these are only touching the first circle and not the inner circle. Because inner circle will be touched only when you have the human form, because then all the three bodies are fully complete and now your consciousness is complete. In other words, although the animal and the fish and the bird experience the gross world, they do not experience in a manner as a human conscious soul experiences. The human conscious soul experiences the gross world in its entirety, whereas the pre-human conscious beings only touch the periphery of the gross. Yes, Naman,
Naman.
you have a question.
Yes.
Bindings are accumulation of sanskaras. Correct.
Clockwise.
Now you can see, now everything is gross. That means stone, metal, mineral, blah, blah, blah. Everybody is touching the gross on the periphery, only the first layer, the first circle. Only the human, when it comes to human beings, the human forms can go all the way into the Anna Bhumi or the gross world. Now, the subtle, you can see the subtle unwinding process, samskara. The subtle planes are only connected with the subtle world. That means they have no consciousness of the gross world, no consciousness of the mental world, no consciousness of God. If you see the mental world, which is the fifth and the sixth plane, they will only touch the mental world. That means once you are in the mental sphere, you have no consciousness of the subtle, no consciousness of the gross, no consciousness of God, but only of the mental world. Now, when you become one with God, that means when soul A becomes Z, then you have, you can see, you have reached the God state. Now, in the God state, you will find that it is touching each and every aspect. It has connection with God, it has connection with mental, it has connection with subtle, and it has connection with each and every soul, each and every being in the gross. And the last one, the one which is going down, that is, it also has connection with God, the beyond, which is also called the Vijnana, which is the resting place for the masters.
Actually, the God state is depicted in these colors,
you can read out. That is there in
purple
chart 10,
color,
but you can
it's
read
actually
out.
there, but we have just done a little bit
please read.
easy to understand.
Yeah.
The purple is the gross body, the blue is the subtle body. Are you checking the chart? The green is the mental
The
body.
multicolored circle
That
is
what Baba has
everything is
explained.
covered there, and God is connected with everybody and everything. Yeah.
So and the purple color is the universal body. The shocking pink is universal mind.
Shocking pink.
This one. The red is the unlimited divine ego, and the yellow is infinite consciousness.
Okay. When we come to chart 10, we'll get to see this again later on. But let's first continue with the explanation of chart 9.
The gross, subtle, and mental worlds, that is Annabhumi, Pranabhumi, and Manobhumi, are each represented by a big circle on the right hand side.
We have already shown that, but let us read it.
Since consciousness of the gross world is not fully developed in the pre-human stages of evolution, the lines which connect the stone, metal, vegetable, worm, fish, bird, and animal souls through their respective stone, metal, vegetable, worm, fish, bird, and animal forms are shown merely touching the gross world only partially, while since consciousness is fully developed in the human form, it is shown through corresponding lines as being capable of understanding the entire gross world in all its different aspects.
We have done that.
In the process of reincarnations, the soul may take a male or a female form, and
under human reincarnation, you'll find all those points. Yeah.
You can put cursor and show, no, baby?
Yeah, he's doing it.
Niche hai na?
He's doing it. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
It may
In
belong
the
to any
process-
nationality, creed, or religion. From the point of view of self-knowledge, the process up to the attainment of the human forms represents an actual descent, though it looks like an ascent, and the process of realization represents an actual ascent, though it looks like a descent, and these two processes are respectively represented by a line representing descent of winding knots of sanskaras, which goes up from the stone stage to the gross world, and by a line representing ascent of unwinding knots of sanskaras, which comes down from the gross world to the God state. The process of ordinary reincarnation begins after the winding is complete, and it continues till the unwinding has begun.
So this also, in a sense, complements or supplements what Eraj Jasawala has said. That in the ordinary sense, The process of ordinary reincarnation begins after the winding is complete. When is the winding completed? In the first human form. And it continues till the unwinding has begun, which means till the first plane, till you enter the first plane or the path to realization. So in our limited understanding, the reincarnation process we talk about, the 84 lakhs of thrashings we talk about, is from the first human form till you enter the spiritual path. Yeah.
In the process of realization, advanced souls from the first through the third planes are conscious only of the subtle world through their subtle bodies.
Ek minute. Although at various times Baba has included the fourth sphere, the fourth plane, also as a subtle, because it is energy, it's a field of energy, that's why he can do anything. In many of the readings we find that Baba pushes that plane up like a higher plane or advanced soul. When he talks about advanced soul, he talks about from fourth till the sixth. So that is also there. Baba uses that terminology. So in a sense, fourth, although it is in the subtle world and it is a threshold between the subtle and the mental, time and time again we have observed that Baba takes it on the fifth plane, on the advanced soul level. That way.
They are aware of ordinary souls who are gross conscious and can act upon them in the subtle world, but all this is done by them through the subtle body and in the subtle world, and they have no connection with the gross world through the gross body.
That means those in the subtle world, although they are not conscious of the gross world, they are aware of these people in the gross, and they can, in a sense, manipulate, the aspect of energy in the gross world people. Just as how people in the mental world, the fifth and the sixth plane, once you go from the fourth, which is powerhouse of energy, to the fifth, you lose all your power. Because you are in the mental world. You are in thoughts. Fifth is thoughts. Sixth is feelings. But you can control the thoughts of everyone below you. That means fourth, third, second, first, and all of the gross world you can manipulate, control, relay, read, do whatever you want to do with thoughts. A fifth planar can do that, and a sixth planar can do that with the feelings. So although they have no powers and they have no consciousness of the subtle and the gross, they can do such things. Indirectly.
In the same way, advanced souls from the fourth through the
See, here
sixth.
Baba is using advanced souls from the fourth. So he is giving that leeway. Okay, you are advanced.
From the fourth through the sixth planes are aware of the gross conscious as well as subtle conscious souls, but they act upon them in the mental world through the mental body, and they have no connection with the gross world through the gross body, nor with the subtle world through the subtle body. Therefore, the lines in the chart connect the subtle conscious souls only with the subtle world, and the corresponding lines connect the mental conscious souls only with the mental world.
That we have done.
In the God state in which all the sanskaras are unwound, consciousness is turned only to God. This is the state of Majzub-e-Kamil, who have no connection with the gross, nor the subtle, nor the mental worlds, but a few who enjoy the God state also come down and regain the consciousness of the entire creation.
So the first step when you experience God realization is that of fana. We call it fana. Divine vacuum, we call it. That is nirvana. And then the second stage is fanafila, which is nirvikalpa. In other words, those who are in the state of mazubiyat, the mazube kamil, they are only conscious of I am God state. They are not conscious of mental, subtle or the gross world, and therefore they cannot do anything Although they are in the gross body, they cannot be of conscious help to anybody. But some of those mazubs will regain the consciousness of all the three worlds, retaining the consciousness of I am God state, then they become the masters. But elsewhere, Baba has segregated between the perfect ones and the perfect masters. The perfect ones are called saliks, and their state of being is called sulukiyat, and the perfect masters are called kutubs, and their state is called kutubiyat. But here he is only dividing.
Perfect ones are mazubs.
Yeah, perfect ones are mazub. Yeah, correct.
Also mazubs.
Yeah, yeah.
saliks and
Okay,
mazubs.
okay. Yeah, I stand corrected. Perfect ones can be mazubs or saliks. Perfect masters are kutubs or sadgurus. They are only 5 at any given point in time. And the totality of these mazubs, saliks and the perfect masters, 56, it's only during the advent when the avatar comes, then he becomes the 57th. So, go ahead.
As Soumya said, the 56 God realized souls are called perfect ones.
Not 56.
Yes.
56 minus 5.
Yes.
51.
No, yes.
Yeah.
The perfect ones include the Sadgurus, but the Sadgurus are perfect masters.
Correct.
So you are talking about the 56 minus 5, which is distributed
51.
between
Saliks and
Madzubs,
yeah.
Paramahamsas and Jivan Muktas.
Correct.
So the Madzub Salik.
Correct. They are the same,
mazub,
different
mazub,
names,
salik.
yeah.
Right.
Vedantic names, yeah. Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And Baba has even given in a chart somewhere, we'll come to that, where in
page
age
278
yeah,
table,
yeah, how
yes,
many
that's
mazubs and how many
Yes,
saliks.
sir.
Correct.
Yeah. But a few who enjoy the God state also come down and regain the consciousness of the entire creation. These are the souls of the masters. The soul of the master is represented by 7 concentric colored circle
That
rings.
we did, that colorful, shocking pink and all that.
The following points, which have been brought out by connecting lines, should be carefully noted. 1. The master's soul is connected with God beyond, which is the Vijnana.
God beyond is the down,
Yeah,
Vijnana,
down.
yeah.
Vijnan, or the resting place of the masters. 2. It is connected with the God state. And 3. It is not connected with...
Not only connected.
It is not only connected with all the 3 worlds, but all the souls, whether they are mental conscious, subtle conscious, or reincarnating human beings who are gross conscious, or souls who are in the pre-human evolutionary
That
stage.
means the masters are connected with everyone and everything. Their experience is that I am everyone and everything. Yeah, we still have time. Can we have chart 10?
No.
Is it possible to?
Lot of
Yeah,
time.
I think you already placed it on the side. Yeah, that one.
Chart 10.
One minute. Let them. Tell us when to proceed. Yeah, okay, take your time.
Yeah. Chart 10 brings out... he
No, but
said
chart 10 is not depicted here. Is
he
it?
would bring it. He said.
No, but when we, let us do it simultaneously. Never mind. Oh, great. Chart 10, okay. It is more or less the same thing, but still it is anchoring us more into understanding. Go ahead.
Chart 10 was given by Baba on 17th May 1943. Chart 10 brings out the details pertaining to the process of evolution up to the human form and the process of realization up to the state of a God realized being. The innermost small circle, which is referred to by S, represents the individual soul.
More or less the same explanation, but let's go through it.
The
S is
soul is shown as having an increasing number of circles around itself up to the human stage, and it is shown as retaining all these circles later on. The second circle, which is next to the soul, represents consciousness,
See, we had done
which
those
goes
layers,
on increase-
layers, 5 layers. So one is soul, now it is consciousness. Okay.
which goes on increasing up to the human form. But afterwards, it remains constant.
Correct.
In evolution,
This was depicted by that blue doll-like thing, yeah.
in evolution,
Sorry?
10.
In chart 9, correct. No,
No.
this is different. So Baba is explaining the same thing in a different manner. With concentric circles increasing one by one, those layers.
In
In
evolution, vegetables acquire the most undeveloped instinct, but not the subtle body.
Certain in the vegetable kingdom you will find sometimes, when you touch a flower of particular
Touch me not.
You touch me not kind of thing, and how the sunflower goes where the sun is. So that means there is a certain sense of what is called, it is an undeveloped instinct. So instinct starts with vegetables and ends with animal kingdom. Not in the human being. In the human being we have intellect. Okay. So, sorry?
Intuition.
Intellect.
Intellect and intuition.
There's-
In evolution, vegetables acquire the most undeveloped instinct, but not the subtle body. Here there is a asterisk. Nevertheless, in the gaseous or stone or metal or vegetable form, the soul also identifies itself, though unconsciously, with its most finite subtle form and its most finite mental form.
In other words, right from the stone stage, there is a very minute, unconscious development of the subtle and the mental, which you cannot decipher. So it says page number, let us go back to page 31. I have mentioned page 31, para 1, where Baba says that although we are saying that instincts start developing in the vegetable, but not the subtle body. But now Baba is saying that the subtle sense is gradually, unconsciously starting to develop all the way back to the stone stage. Para 1. Read para 1.
During the course of evolution of its consciousness, the soul, Atma, while consciously identifying itself with varied, finite, gross forms, was also simultaneously, though unconsciously, identifying itself with its finite, subtle form and its finite mental form, which associated with the soul in compact, homogeneous, unconscious alliance throughout the entire course of evolution of consciousness, right from the first urge.
That means right from the stone form, this is happening. I'll just read out this paragraph. Because here Baba says not the subtle body, but again he is saying, but subtle already it has started from stone.
Although
During the course of evolution of its consciousness, this is part 4, reincarnation and the impressionless equipoise of consciousness. That's the part. During the course of evolution of its consciousness, the soul, Atma, while consciously identifying consciously with the gross, while consciously identifying itself with varied, finite, gross forms. But even here, the consciousness is very rudimentary, most finite, but it can identify gross. Was also simultaneously, though unconsciously, identifying itself with its finite subtle form and its finite mental form, which associated with the soul in a compact, close-knit, closely, compact, homogeneous, similar, alike, homogeneous, unconscious alliance, affinity, union, connection, unconscious alliance throughout the entire course of evolution of consciousness, right from the first urge. That means right from the first urge, everything starts developing, the gross, the subtle and the mental. The subtle and the mental is unconsciously, which finally gets full consciousness in the first human form. Go ahead.
which sorry, Baba. In evolution, vegetables acquire the most undeveloped instinct,
Correct?
but I'm looking at the chart, but not the subtle body which emerges in an undeveloped form in worms and reptiles. This subtle body goes on developing until it is fully developed in the human form. Side by side with the development of the subtle body, there is a simultaneous development of instinct. Intellect, in its partial development, makes its first appearance at the stage of animals.
Instincts are complete in the animal, intellect starts in the animal, and intellect is complete in the human form. And apart from intellect, as we further go ahead, then we have inspiration, we have intuition, we have insight, we have illumination, and then realization. So these are the developments which are happening after the human form is gained.
Baba, intellect in its partial development makes its first appearance at the stage of animals, but the mental body appears only at the last stage represented by the human form.
And therefore, the human form is whole and complete. And therefore, the human form is supposedly made in the likeness and image of God. When we come to the sevenfold, about the openings in the eyes, nose, we'll come to that, how Baba has used or tried to make us understand that which is subtle through our limited intellect. So we'll come to that later. Darwaja, okay.
In the human form, the first innermost circle represents the individual soul. The next outer circle represents full consciousness. And then the outer circle,
In the order.
in the other outer circles, in the order in which they are drawn respectively, represent the seat of individuality, 1, 2, sanskaras or unexpressed desires.
Intellect. This all that we did, I said
Yeah,
the
we did
layers.
it, yeah.
But when you see the chart, you will see the circles are gradually going up and up.
Intellect, number 3. Number 4, felt desires of the mental body. Number 5, subtle body, in which there is a partial expression of desires. And 6, the gross body, in which the desires come to be fully expressed. All the circles round the innermost circle of the soul, with the exception of the first circle of consciousness, are layers of consciousness. Of these layers, the outermost circle and the circle next to it, respectively, represent the gross and the subtle bodies, while the other 4 layers around consciousness represent 4 functions of one mental body. Of these 4 functions of the mental body, 2, that is, felt desires and intellect, are usually included under mind, and the other 2, that is, sanskaras or unexpressed desires and the seat of individuality, are included under the ego. Thus, at the human stage, the soul, with its consciousness, has 3 bodies but 6 layers, including the gross layer known as the gross body.
So in the human stage, the soul with its consciousness has 3 bodies, which we did, gross, subtle, mental, and 6 layers, which also we did, we worked out. there is consciousness, there is seat of individuality, there is sanskaras, intellect, felt desires, subtle body, and gross body.
When after reincarnations...
Any question on this? If you read it side by side with the chart,
see the chart,
it's just,
then
yeah,
it will be very beautiful.
yeah.
When, after reincarnations, the human soul launches upon the process of realization, intellect is replaced by inspiration, which finds its expression from the first to the third plane, and from the fourth to the sixth plane, this inspiration is transformed into illumination.
Now, elsewhere, sometimes you might find this, it is not just straight away into illumination, but there is insight, inner sight, where on the fifth plane, the fifth planar is able to see very, very blurred. The example given was, he knows that God exists, but he is not able to see him properly. And the example given was like, if you are stung by a scorpion, you know there is something there, but you can't see it, maybe it has run away or whatever, but you know. On the sixth plane, there is absolute clarity. And that is why when Baba talks about, conviction, three types of conviction, three types of knowledge. One is intellectual conviction, where we are reading all these things and intellectually we know that God exists. There is something called God. We take it on faith or belief. And faith and belief is definitely based on ignorance, because there is no knowledge of it, And then there is conviction by sight. The person who is on the sixth plane is known as the peer. He is able to have, he feels to have seen and to be seeing God in everyone and everything, but he knows that he is not yet one with God. The duality is still there, So that is the conviction by sight. And then finally when he goes from 6 to 7, that is the conviction or knowledge by actually becoming one with God, when he knows that yes, God exists and I know I am God. Something like that.
When after reincarnations, the human soul launches upon the process of realization, intellect is replaced by inspiration, which finds its expression from the first to the third plane, and from the fourth to the sixth plane. This inspiration is transformed into illumination. The colored rings or concentric circles represent the soul of a God realized person.
The same colors, the same representation. Okay.
With all the vehicles at its disposal. In respect to this diagram, the following points should be carefully noted. The three outer circles, the three outer rings respectively represent the gross, subtle and mental bodies. We find all these bodies also in ordinary human beings. Number 2, in the God-realized person, there has emerged a new spiritual body known as the universal body. Yeah.
Or, can you see the chart?
Mahakarana Sharir, which is the seat of the universal mind, just as water is contained in a cup. The universal mind may be said to be contained in the universal body.
But that is after God realization, when they retain their body and get back the consciousness of the lower planes, which means from 6 to 1 and the gross plane, they function from the universal mind, Mahakaran.
Body is Mahakaran Sharir.
No, एक minute. Mahakaran Sharir is the human body, and they have a universal mind. So through the universal body, the universal body contains the universal mind.
Correct.
And they function through the universal mind.
Correct.
Okay.
Therefore, through the universal body and Therefore, though the universal body and the universal mind are represented by two different circles, they are inseparable from each other.
That's what Baba is a cup containing water. So they are inseparable. Okay.
The universal mind of the master, which works through his universal body, is in direct contact with the mental bodies of all the individual souls in creation, and it can, through these mental bodies, bring about any changes in the mental, subtle or gross worlds.
This gives us a thinking, at least sometimes it makes me think. What we see around in the world, we feel what sort of world we are living in. But perhaps that is how the avatar has worked, because the job of the living perfect masters, they are like officiating bodies or what should I say? Yeah, they are the ones who implement the plan which has been drawn out by the avatar. So once the avatar sets a certain benchmark or a milestone, this is where the creation has to go 1000 years from now. And the perfect masters see to it. They are the executors. They are the executors of the divine plan. So when a master with a universal mind in a universal body can have contact with all and every souls, mental, subtle, gross, including pre-human, animals, everything, then they are in the know of all this is happening. And I am sure whatever it is happening according to the divine plan. So who are we to contest that or to go against that and say this is happening is wrong and this is happening is right? This is my personal take.
Everything is in perfect order.
Sorry? Yeah, everything is in perfect order, so to speak. The basic thing is that the basic problem or issue arises is because we think all this is real. Whereas according to the seers, according to those who have realized, all this is just a drama. It's just a story unfolding. It is just a shadow play happening. So they don't seem to be at least overtly affected by what is happening.
Though the
1 minute.
Meher Baba.
Kama has a question. Mike. Please.
To extrapolate what you're saying, that everything in the universe is perfectly fine-tuned as per the divine script. When you read about the beginning of the universe, which according to physics is 13.8 billion years ago, called the Big Bang, which actually synchronizes with the whim. And what I've understood is that the whole universe is perfectly fine-tuned with the laws of matter and the laws of the spirit, except for one thing, which is the thinking mind, ego, personality, self in the waking state of 16 hours. That's the only thing that is out of tune, because we are all in a divine dream with many concentric dreams going on, right? You have the sleeping dream state. This is the waking dream state.
False awake state.
Right.
Yeah. But again, what you say is correct. But in the ultimate analysis, if the masters really want to change things, it is like this, they can do it. But the very fact is that most masters, we have seen it with Meher Baba, he allows things to happen in the natural course, in a natural manner. So maybe whether that is what he has planned or that is what he has not planned, we are not sitting on that judgment seat and saying. Because Baba says, everything happens according to his will. But what is his will? His will is the law of karma. His will, according to my understanding, everything happens according to his will means everything happens according to the law of karma. So if I have done something wrong, and if something wrong comes to me, it is happening according to his will. And I should not be complaining and crying about it. So maybe what all things are happening in the world out there, whether you call it whatever you call it, whatever name or label that we bring, it is happening according to the operation of the law of karma. I have hurt somebody is hurting me, like that.
So would you say that the law of karma is part of the universal laws, or what you call laws of the spirit world?
Not
The law of sanskaras, the law of karma.
sanskaras, law of illusion, Baba calls it,
Right.
the law of illusion. As long as we are in the domain of illusion, the dominion of the law of duality is the domain of duality, or the dominion of the law of karma is within the domain of duality. The moment we go beyond duality, the law does not operate. And God is obviously above law. But we might go into a different direction. It's already 6 o'clock. Let us finish this. We can talk one-on-one later. Yeah, please.
The universal mind of the master, which works through his universal body, is in direct contact with the mental bodies of all the individual souls in creation, and it can, through these mental bodies, bring about any changes.
See, he can do anything if he wants to. Yeah.
in the changes in the mental, subtle, or gross worlds.
Correct.
Though the master has a mental body like ordinary humans, he always works only through his universal mind. Number 3, in the master's soul, the limited ego of the human stage is transmuted into the unlimited ego, that is, the feeling of separateness and
So, in
narrow.
other words, when we finally reach the goal, the false separative ego transmutes itself into the divine ego or the real ego. Ego is never annihilated. That's what I was coming to. Yeah.
That is, the feeling of separateness and narrow individuality is replaced by the realization of unlimited, indivisible, and all comprehensive existence. Number 4, the soul of the master is endowed with infinite consciousness. The full consciousness at the human stage does not reveal or express the infinity of the soul owing to the limitations of sanskaras. But in the God realized person, this full consciousness is not limited by any sanskaras, and therefore it reveals or expresses the infinity of the soul.
That means
Jai
even though in the first human form, everything is complete, but because of the accumulation, the garbage, the load of samskaras, that is why we are not able to experience the I am God state and not able to experience infinite knowledge, power and bliss. Although it is there, once you remove the samskaras, it just manifests itself. So that is the basic difference between a God-realized person and an ordinary human being. The God-realized person has no limiting factor of the impressions or the samskaras, whereas we have the limiting factor. Any questions? We've done with... yeah, okay. Nothing. Thank you, Baba. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. Thank you, Baba. Thanks to all of you. I don't know when we are meeting. We might meet next Saturday, Sunday, which is, I think, 13th, 14th. Or if at all we are going to Bombay, which is possible, then we will be meeting after that. Thank you, Baba. And whosoever wants to have a link of God Speaks, you can approach Rakesh and take it from him so that you can follow the entire whatever. This is the 17th, is that correct? 18th. Okay, 18th session. Oh yeah, 18th session. Thank you, Baba. Jai Baba.